All good.
Stewie, how are you feeling after last weekend, mate, and looking forward to the big clash?
Yeah, short turnaround's good. Obviously, the scoreboard was disappointing. Felt for the first 40 minutes really competitive, and then we dropped away after that. So we look forward to a good response. And we talked a little bit about how Adelaide responded from their previous week, able to bounce back. So we can always learn from the opposition.
Where do you think it fell away most, and what are you kind of focused on this week?
I think they were a lot stronger in the contest. Our transition speed was minimal. They moved the ball elite, so they were able to shift the ball. We won centre clearances, but from there it went back pretty quick. So just our ability to switch from offence to defence, vice versa.
Are you likely to make any changes to the team, and is anyone banging down the door from the reserves?
There's a couple there, just some decisions to make. So we expect Milesley to be available. Josh Corbett's available. Aaron Young's available. Sam Day. So some guys have been playing and Brad Shear also. So some consistent performances in the NEAFL. So when we sit down today and tomorrow to finalise the side, might be a long one.
How's Will Powell?
Yeah, he's coming along. So he's just an assess. But he trained yesterday, so he's moving okay. He'll just be it's just a medical call, that one, rather than selection.
Stewie, if you look at this time last year, in a pretty similar position, and then I think it was 11 straight losses. What makes you think things can be different this year, based on what you've seen so far, that doesn't happen again?
I think that was then. This is now. We're a totally different team. I think we'd have at least half the side that's different. The club's different. Our preparation's been different, so we certainly don't expect that. But again, we think by and large over the first 5 weeks we've competed well, and on the weekend we let ourselves down scoreboard-wise. So we look to rectify that.
What about the position of the two clubs? It's pretty exciting for us, people who love footy in this state, and if we had to play this game 2 weeks ago, it would have been potentially at top of the table. And I guess there's been 2 bad performances, so someone's going to redeem themselves on the weekend. But the whole feel of this game is different to we've ever had before.
Yeah, it's great for footy. I'm happy for Fags as well. So always keeping an eye on the other team, more so because of relationship with Fags. But for Queensland football, I think we know it's going well at grassroots and participation. So our role in that is to make sure that the senior teams are competitive. So regardless of result, I think if we have a really competitive game, we'll both walk away happy with, I guess, the first 6 weeks and where we both sit in terms of competitiveness in the league and making sure we're in games to win.
Fags, have you spent the early part of this week concentrating on what you did poorly the past couple of weeks, or have you sort of reflected on what you did well the first couple of weeks?
We've used the opportunity, because we played on Thursday night, to sort of reflect on the 2 rounds of the JLT and the 5 rounds of AFL footy, and sort of done a little bit of an audit on ourselves, and what our best football looks like and what it doesn't look like, because we've got a couple of looks at that over the last few weeks against 2 really good sides that are in great form at the moment. So it's been an opportune time to do that, because you don't often get a decent break between games to have a think about that, but we've done that, and that's been the main thing that we focused on. How do we get back to playing our very best football?
Any advantage in that, Chris, having an extra few days break?
Only in the fact that you can do that. It's good if like for us, we had a 5-day break between the Essendon game and the Collingwood game, so that's something that our players hadn't experienced before. So to get a few extra days after that is good. It'd be a little bit tougher if you had to front up again in 6 days, but as it's turned out, we've had a decent break, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, to come at the right time for you, a couple of those big games, and from what you're saying, it sounds like your form really wasn't that bad. Just came up against 2 hot teams at the right time.
There were some things about our form that wasn't all that good. I mean, with the Essendon game, I think after half-time on the scoreboard we won, and we had 10 more inside 50s than they did, just didn't use the ball very well going inside 50. Collingwood just really started poorly, and our ball movement was not what it should be. We've had a look at that. We'll aim to improve it, and Stu will be trying to stop us, just like we'll be trying to stop him. So it's sort of, that's the way the game goes. But this time last year we were 0-5 with a percentage of 60, and we didn't win a game until about round 8 or 9. So you know, our expectation of ourselves this year is that we improve, and right now that's a tick. That's a tick for us. You know, we've been able to beat some teams we haven't beaten in a long, long time, and you know, we're competitive in the competition and had some valuable learnings the last couple of weeks.
Steve Hocking was on yesterday just reviewing things, the new rules after round 5. Just to both of you, your thoughts, and I mean, can we expect an open game on Saturday afternoon, being an afternoon game as well? It really seems to be up to the coaches how they obviously approach the game, whether they want to close it down, and or it's going to be an open, free-flowing game. To both of you, your rules after round 5.
What do you think?
Have a talk about it afterwards and see what
Yeah.
sort of game we want to have. Oh, look, I think the biggest, I don't know whether Stu would agree, the biggest rule change is the centre bounce one. You know, if you can get a clean clearance, you're a great chance to score. And you know, it was like our game last week at half time against Collingwood. We thought we'd worked our way back into it a bit, and then they kicked 2 goals out of the centre in 30 seconds. It's like, you know, where did that come from? And there's nothing you can do really to protect it. You're just relying. You want to win them if you can, and you're relying on your back 6 to compete really well if you lose them. So across the course of the season, there's been fairly big, and we've been in games where there's been big momentum swings on the back of centre bounce clearances. The other rules probably, you know, I don't think they've affected things so much. We probably, if you ask me, I'd still rather be able to use the runner from time to time when you can, so you can actually make some changes to the game at the right moments. But the centre bounce one for me is the big one.
You've both got fairly young sides. Is the run rule, do you think, affecting your sides more than some of the more experienced teams?
I think in the short term, you'd love to be able to, I guess, support your players a little bit. We, as a rule, last year was more about reinforcement of behaviours and I guess things we're trying to implement during the week, and actually getting players off the ground. You know, sometimes the younger players aren't aware how long they're out on the ground and what's good for them in that regard. So we're finding at times they can be out there a little bit longer and get under real fatigue and can be a little bit at risk. But in the long term, I think it should help them in their development, but a little bit of short-term pain, I think, for the younger lists. But they tell us that'll help us in the long term. So,
Chris, has this been one of the more difficult selection weeks for you? You've got your vice captain out this week and another midfielder and some guys battling for form. Like, are you finding that selection sort of?
Yeah, well, it's been a bit different. You know, we won our JLT games and won the first 3, and we didn't have many injuries, so we chose not to change our side. We lost the game against Essendon, and we thought we'll back the guys in that have been getting the job done, which is a pretty natural thing to do. And then we didn't have a good performance against Collingwood, so given that we've got a couple of injuries, there's been our NEFL team's been in red hot form. I think undefeated and winning most of their games by a lot. You know, there'll be some changes this week. We haven't finalised all that yet. We've sort of done half of our selection. We do the other half tomorrow, post-training. So there'll be a few changes this week.
Stewie, Chris talked about the centre bounce clearances and how pivotal they are, but from my observation, you're getting dominance from Witsy, but you're happy to palm it in and try and lock it up, and you don't mind repeat stoppages. Is that fear of outside run, or is that just how it's happening? Or
yeah, it's a little bit. We don't want to play Russian roulette in there, but has been a little bit about who we're up against. You know, a lot of the times we've been up against really big midfield, so Bulldogs and obviously Fremantle, and even again on the weekend, the Crows are physically bigger than us. So we can be a little bit dictated too. And I thought Riley O'Brien actually, you know, matched Witsy in the centre bounce on the weekend. I think we were +6, but it was more what's actually happening after the centre bounce. So we're able to get the clearance, but their half-backs their reaction time was far greater than ours, and able to slingshot off the back of that.
Stewie, what chance of sending 2 to Dane Zorko this weekend?
I'm sure at some point they'll be running next to each other. How often and how long, we'll just wait and see. I'm sure they're probably both expecting it, I think.
Stewie, I think you've spoken in the past about kind of contacting Chris a couple of times last year to kind of chat through things. Can you give us any more insight into the relationship you guys have and how much you lean on each other?
I guess, last year being my first year, there's just some advice around, I guess, managing a small group, what the environment is up here. We haven't so much this year because I guess I've got a new coaching group and new group of players, so spending most of the time there, and Chris has been busy winning games. So I think it's just good to know that he's there, I guess. But you don't want to bother him too much, and probably vice versa. So it's just good to have an ally in the ranks, where for all bar 2 weeks, it doesn't have to be this fierce rivalry. But obviously this week we're opposition. Yeah, well then we don't even need to bother. I know he's not going to answer. So, but next week we can move on, and other coaches at other clubs, I'm sure, we all ring each other when we're playing oppositions. If they've just played the one you're coming up against, they're there if you want to give them a call.
Thanks. You talked about some of your options for changing the side this week. Is the ruck a question mark for you? Obviously, Steph probably didn't have his best game on the weekend, and Archie has the leap that he has and can contest with his height. Is that something that you thought about going into this game?
No. Steph's been in great form, and Oscar. So on the back of one game against Heath Grundy, who's probably the hot ruckman in the competition at the moment, you get beaten from time to time. You wouldn't have asked me that question after the Essendon game. So 1 week's not going to make any difference there.
Will you look to match up? Gold Coast has a slightly different forward line potentially. Do you look to match them with Harris being out? Will you go for it? Will you necessarily bring a tall in, or might you mix and match depending on opposition? Do you think?
No, we'll talk about all those things at selection.
What about Zorko, coach? He's been playing more minutes forward this year, it seems. And how did he take that? And what was the reasons for doing it? Was it because of tags, or was it because you just feel like the way every midfield looks different now? There seems to be a big guy and then a couple of fast outside guys. So how's that evolved?
Well, for starters, he really enjoys playing forward.
Yeah.
We're trying to evolve our midfield. We've got a lot of good young midfielders who we want to give time to. So, he happily, being the captain and happy to play a team role, mixes us up a little bit more than what he has done in the past.
It's a good test of character, Chris, to rebound from last weekend in a game like this, sort of the grudge match, where you go 3-3 or 4-2. It's a pretty big juncture in your season. You're sort of looking for them to what you can get out of the guys character-wise.
I think always coaches are looking for the response after some poor performance. That's a secret to this competition because it's so even. You're going to have your patches where you don't go so well, but it's your ability to bounce back quickly is what you're looking for. And both of us are in the same boat this week, so that'll help make the competition pretty fierce on Saturday, I would imagine.
Is it as simple as a side that wants to lock an opponent up and a side that wants to move the ball and score? I know you want to defend, and I know you want to score, but that seems to be the DNA of your two clubs over the first 5 weeks.
We'd like to defend. Well, we defended really well for about 5 weeks, and the last couple of weeks we've fallen away. We spend more time talking about that than we do our offence, to be honest. So we'll be looking for an improvement in our contested ball and our defence this weekend for sure.
Yeah, probably equally. We've been working a fair bit on our connection at training. We haven't seen it come through in the games. Even the game, I think there was a period just before three-quarter time, we were able to get through the Crows. We weren't able to connect and finish. So we know we want to put some more scoreboard pressure on for sure. So we're definitely putting equal time into the offence and defence. The players are really bought into the pressure around the ball, which dropped on the weekend. So we expect a lift.